Most ancient prophecies, like the quatrains of Nostradamus, rely on vague poetry that can be adapted to fit almost any event. Biblical texts operate differently. They often present verifiable geopolitical data. Take the prophet Ezekiel. In 590 BCE, he targeted the Phoenician megaport of Tyre, a city then considered an invincible fortress. The prophecy outlined an exact engineering blueprint. It claimed attackers would scrape the dust from the city and place its stones, timber, and even its soil directly into the water. This is a military engineering schematic recorded centuries before the specific technology and tactics required to execute it even existed. 2.5 centuries later, in 332 BCE, Alexander the Great arrived at this exact location. He found the citizens of Tyre had retreated to their heavily fortified island city, half a mile out into the Mediterranean. To reach them, Alexander bypassed traditional naval warfare. He ordered his army to completely demolish the ruins of the old mainland city. Macedonian troops cleared every stone, timber beam, and handful of dirt, hurling the debris into the sea to construct a 200-foot-wide land bridge. By the time the siege was over, the mainland city was literally scraped to the bedrock to provide the material for that causeway. If an ancient text could map the mechanics of a siege 250 years in advance, its predictions for our own era deserve a technical evaluation. This diagram represents a vision from the Book of Daniel. It uses a multi-metallic statue to map a chronological sequence of world empires that would rule the Near East. The head of gold represented the power of the day, the Babylonian Empire. The chest and arms of silver aligned with the Medo-Persian Empire, which conquered Babylon in 539 BCE. The belly and thighs of bronze appeared in 334 BCE with the Greek Empire, characterized by the bronze armor and weapons of Alexander's phalanxes. Finally, the legs of iron arrived with the Roman Empire, which used disciplined, ironclad military force to crush the kingdoms that came before it. The text provided a flawless chronological map of military succession centuries before the final empire ever rose to power. The timeline ends at the base of the statue, the feet and toes of iron mixed with clay. This represents the final stage of human governance in the prophetic record. The prophecy identifies this stage as a coalition of 10 distinct leaders or nations, emerging specifically from the geographic footprint of the old Roman Empire. The text highlights a structural flaw based on the materials. Iron cannot physically bond with clay. It describes a kingdom that is partly strong and partly brittle, a scenario where elite political power, the iron, tries to force a union with unstable social movements or populist factions, represented by the clay. This is a diagnostic view of a fragile geopolitical environment, one where central powers enforce economic stability but are constantly threatened by internal fracturing. Revelation chapter 16 describes the moment this fragile iron and clay alliance reaches its breaking point. The text names the geographic staging ground for the final conflict, Har Megiddo. This is a real valley plain in northern Israel. The prophecy provides a checklist of modern indicators, starting with the physical drying of the Euphrates River to create a natural military highway. This environmental shift allows for the mobilization of a massive Eastern superpower coalition, the Kings from the East, marching directly toward the Middle East. The final indicator is a global convergence of political focus and military tension surrounding the territorial sovereignty of Jerusalem. These texts mapped an unorthodox siege, a 600-year succession of empires, and a specific geographic staging ground for conflict. They function as a geopolitical framework that correctly identified the patterns of the past and continues to align with the infrastructural and territorial shifts of the present.